Well, hello. We're just getting through the aftermath of Hurricane Arthur here, but in a couple hours I decided to install some auxiliary lights on my K16. The K16 comes with, as an option, auxiliary lights offered by BMW, and those lights are wired into the harness and they're controlled with a button on the left-hand switch block. My bike didn't come with them, and it's prohibitively expensive in my opinion to retrofit them for what I get. And in my opinion, I can get equal lighting or better lighting for a lot less money. Now, I do believe in auxiliary lighting on motorcycles. If you do any kind of night driving and even daytime driving, the extra light increases your conspicuity to other drivers. They see you coming from a long ways off. There's been a ton of research done on this particular subject, especially here in Canada. So much so that most cars, actually it's a requirement of all cars that are sold here in Canada, have daytime running lights. Period. There's no option. And motorcycles have had mandatory daytime running lights since I can remember, since long before I've been riding in the 70s. So there's a ton of proof there that they work as far as other drivers seeing you. But I also like the fact that if I'm doing any nighttime running, and where I ride typically can vary anywhere from a split lane highway to B secondary roads, I like the extra light. Now, the kind of lighting you'll need or you'll use is completely up to you. If you like a flood, if you like to increase the lighting immediately in front of the motorcycle and out to shorter medium distances, so you can see the entire sort of road surface, then you can get more of a flood design light. I opted for a spotlight, and a spot basically shoots a narrow cone of light out a long distance. In particular, I bought the Denali DX1 lights offered from Twisted Throttle. Read great reviews on these, and I decided to buy a pair. They're about $430 or $440 from Twisted Throttle. And I also bought these tech mount sort of mounting brackets, also from Twisted Throttle. Very happy with both, and I'll go through and I'll show a comparison at night with and without these lights on, and the kind of lighting you can expect from something like this, hoping my camera is up to the task. Now, first things first, it's important to realize that I've mounted these OEM crash bars on my bike. I bought them used secondhand on eBay. I paid about half what normal OEM retail was. They came off a brand new bike from a fellow who bought a GTL limited edition. The one was offered this year in 2014. He didn't like the look of them, so he took them off his bike, and I in turn bought them from him, and I got a great deal on them. So I mounted those purely to allow me a method to, or a means of mounting these lights. I tried every other way other than crash bars to mount these lights. There is a boss here on the engine I tried mounting them on. There's a boss down here on the side of the engine I tried mounting them on. No luck, primarily because the lights stuck out too far, to the point that if I was doing any heavy leaning, they would impact the side of the housing or cause a crash or damage the engine block, and I don't want any of that. Where they're mounted here now, they're actually mounted inside of the outer line of where these bars would line up with the lean angle of the bike. So these bars are going to touch down long before these here lights will. You'll also notice, as I mentioned earlier, I mounted these tech mount brackets here on both sides. These here essentially allow me to modify a few things. First of all, since I mounted the light below, I can swivel these up and down. Just by loosening up these here two nuts, I can swivel these lights up and down, and I can rotate them side to side by loosening up this bolt here. If I find the lights are not level, I can loosen up this nut here and level them out and equal up with both sides of the bike. Now, that doesn't have a huge function other than aesthetics, and something that really looks silly, really catches the eye of a lot of people, will bother you forever. So I decided to mount them in this fashion, and I've had great luck being able to offer a great deal of adjustability on these lights simply by loosening this bolt or loosening these two bolts on either side of the light. Works great. Now, I chose spotlights, as I mentioned, because I want to see long in the distance, primarily for wildlife. So I have each one of these lights aimed off into the ditch on either side of the road, or in the shoulder of either side of the road. The stock lights on the bike are, in my opinion, excellent. They do a great job of lighting up a carpet down the center of the road, far enough in advance that I can easily outbrake the lights. These here give me a little extra degree of warning by shooting a beam of light, and it is narrow. I will tell you this here, these Denali DX1 shoot a very narrow cone of light, but they do a good job for what I'm looking for. They send it down into the ditch or to the side of the road, the shoulder, and give me warning if there is some wildlife that's entering the road. That allows me to hit the brakes, and then as I get slightly closer, the main stock lights will start lighting up the situation, and it works great. Now, the downside of such a narrow spot is they're very fussy to the mounting angle, so you really have to fiddle with these settings to get the sort of the focus or the aim, in particular, of these lights just right. Now, these lights are about 3 inches across by 3 inches down, so they're 3 inches square. That's about a medium-sized light. Denali offers much smaller lights, which are a little less conspicuous in housing, but do a good job of lighting up. They offer both spot and flood versions of their lights, and they work very well from the reviews I've read. I'm very pleased with these ones, and you'll see in a minute how well they light up the road at night compared to just the stock lighting. I tried, prior to buying these tech mounts, as you can see if you have a good eye, I tried drilling through these crash bars and mounting the lights directly to it, but I had a horrible time trying to do that, trying to get clearance against this plastic without having the light stick too far out, and then getting it level. I had no luck whatsoever. So I have two ugly holes on this side and the other that I need to cover up or live with, one or the other. These tech mounts are the way to go, and had I known I'd have these kinds of troubles, I would have bought these off in the first place. But I didn't, but I have them now, and I'm okay. Now, as you can see, here is the on-off switch for the lights. I have a just two-sided tape holding this on top of the grip clamp. Then I run the wire down underneath, and I bundle it in with the main harness running alongside of the bars up here. And it works very well. The way this works is when you turn on the bike, there's a small green LED that lights up inside here. This is not actually solid black, it's actually a translucent plastic, and you can see the light shining inside the housing. When you turn on the lights, that green LED turns to yellow. Now, the way this is wired is that these lights, although wired for their power, go directly to the battery. The sensor for whether or not they should be switched to the key is a separate set of wires. I've run them into the power lit adapter on the other side, and I'll show you how I've wired those. I decided to use the tail lights as a trigger wire. Fortunately, my trigger wire is too short to reach this red wire that plugs into the top box, which I'll use. So I get out my handy Bosch kit I got off of eBay, and I'll run a wire back from the Denali unit to that red wire. Now, I wanted to run it off the auxiliary plug on the right-hand side of the bike, but that will cause all sorts of headaches down the road if the lights wouldn't turn off after you turn off the bike, which isn't a good idea. This works much better, and using these waterproof connectors, I'll never have a problem. And finally, here's what they look like. This is low beam, and this is high beam. And last but not least, here is the two driving lights on either side. So they're about the same distance throw as the high beam. The street light off in the distance is about 1,000 feet. The little paver on the right-hand side you see is about 450 feet. And there's a tiny little street side blue sign. It's about 6 inches square you'll see on the left-hand side. That's about 700 feet away, believe it or not. So they do a great job of exactly what I want.